Frankie Orange, appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Yeah, man.
Been wanting you on here for a long time. Fellow Maryland boy. Um, I'll tell you later how I learned about you, which is not what you would expect. But I'm like, why am I not friends with Frankie? So, all right, we're going to start this off with a rapid fire questions. Everybody gets the same questions. As you know, you probably heard it.
Yep.
I think I'm going to go 100% on you. I think I know. So here we go. Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars.
Rolling Stones or Beatles?
This one's gonna fool you. I'm gonna choose the Beatles.
See that's where I had you wrong.
I can tell you why
All right,
later.
tell me. Okay, tell me why now.
Well. So I worked for the Stones,
Yeah.
and on the 40 Licks tour, and I
Oh, no.
honestly, out of my 20-year span, it's the one I liked the least, and I loved my job on all the tours, no matter what the genres were. But I hate to say it, but for me personally, Mick Jagger was a complete letdown. The other guys, the the best. It's just him.
Well, like what?
Um,
Like prima donna kind of stuff?
yeah, like look, like I get it. Like when you hold these jobs with these people, they're not there to be your friend. They don't want your cell phone number. And I don't want theirs. I don't want to be their friend most of the time either.
Yeah.
Like I get the professionalism, but he's one of those guys where like when he's coming down the hall, you're supposed to try to and avoid that at that time, or if he is coming through, to not make eye contact. And
You got the no eye contact speech.
yeah, so of course I made eye contact. I've never been fired from a job in my life, and I was like, how amazing would it be to get fired for making eye contact with Mick Jagger, right? But you know, look, again, like I get they don't want to be obligated. They do give you a paycheck. They don't owe you anything. But the way I see it is I'm also away from my family. I'm here to do my job. I don't care if you say hi to me or not. So the fact that you need to put these staples in place, I
So
mean,
I want to get into this later in deep dive because you said something interesting that I want to follow up on. But real quickly, before we get back to the questions, do you think that was his edict, or do you think that was the manager's just
definitely him because
really?
the other guys, I'm telling you, like someone like Keith Richards, if he passed you in the hallway, he would say, "Hey Tom, before I'm going to stage, can I get you a drink?" That Keith
Oh,
Richards.
that sounds awesome.
Charlie, Ronnie, like they they were very friendly, and again, I don't want to cross that line that they should need to be your friends. My point being is that look, when you're working, 20-hour days, um someone, being nice to you and kind to you, just a simple wink goes a long way for some people, especially for maybe someone like, me. I work with the artist pretty often, but what about the sixth lighting guy?
Hmm.
No one knows who he is. If you came by and you just cracked a smile at him, you made that guy's tour.
Well,
Y-
it's that, but it's also it's like a movie set, and you're with the same people
Yeah,
very closely.
yeah,
You're living with them for
yeah,
months and months at a time. You eat together with catering. You do everything together. So more times than not, movie sets, TV commercial sets, more so movie sets because it's a longer process.
yeah,
Everyone becomes family, and
yeah,
you have those Mick Jaggers of the world
yeah,
that don't want to be a part of that, but then you have I would say the majority of the people that I've worked with were just cool, and again, you may not have their phone number, you may, I don't know, but we'll get into that
yeah,
later. I have an interesting story about that, but
yeah. So for me, it's the Beatles.
okay.
Even
only
though I do
because
love
only
the
because of that.
only, um,
Take attitude aside, music wise, who would you pick?
Music wise, I would have probably picked the Stones, but I will tell you what I call the drug years of the Beatles, like the long hair, like beard Beatles.
Yeah, yeah.
I love that stuff.
Okay.
I do love it. So, so Mick scarred the Stones
They
for
tell you
me.
not to meet your heroes. They tell you that. You had
Yeah.
no choice. Um,
No.
all right, Coke or Pepsi?
Pepsi.
So you had me wrong on that too.
If you look up anything on me, all the suicidal tendency stuff,
Yeah, I guess so. I
it's
completely
gotta
overlooked
be
that. Beach or mountains?
beach.
PC or Mac?
Mac.
East Coast or West Coast?
West Coast.
Kramer or Costanza?
I would go Kramer.
Superman or Batman?
Superman.
And then I think I know this one: Kardashians or Osbournes? You
Osborne's.
saw that post I had maybe this
Yeah.
morning on, yeah.
Yeah.
Put my favorite
Yeah.
Ozzy song on there too.
Yeah.
All right, so listen, my friend, you are a legendary tattoo artist, tour manager, businessman. I think most importantly, father. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah,
Um,
that's my prized possession. I love being a dad.
well, okay, so I was going to save this for later. I found out about you because of Six. So my
Oh.
daughter and I were sitting there one day. I think it was, I want to say Hulu, maybe Hulu, and we started watching the Kicks. So
Amazon.
yeah, Amazon.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
And we were sitting there. We did a whole like marathon of it, and
Yeah.
she just was enamored with your daughter. And then, as kids do, she started pulling her up on Instagram, and she's like, "Hey, look, they're from an app," all this kind of stuff. I'm like, "Who's that
Yeah.
guy that's always in that picture?" And then I found out it was you, and then I started looking up, going, "Oh man, he's done this and this and this and this." So thanks to Six, thank her that we're here together
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so we'll talk about fatherhood later. But tell me about your early years. You grew up in Annapolis.
Yeah, I grew up in Annapolis, like super young parents. My parents just 2 weeks ago hit their 50th year anniversary.
Wow.
They had me at 16 and 17, and they've never even had another boyfriend or girlfriend. Like
Really?
they come from big families, like eight brothers and sisters, seven brothers and sisters. So, in that time when you have a kid that young, my grandparents were like, you guys better get jobs. We have enough kids to
Mm-hmm.
take care of. And and as I think back on like how hard that was for them, but the flip side is I'm so lucky because as I was growing, they were growing with me, so they really had like a great understanding of my life, just to give you like a couple examples, like my mom used to ride BMX bikes with me and throw footballs with me and like when I was 12, I can still remember this. I was listening to 98 Rock in my bedroom.
98, right?
And let me back up a step. I had caught the Looks That Kill video on MTV.
What do you mean?
And being from Annapolis, it's
Yeah.
very preppy,
Mm-hmm.
very sailboaty. I love it. I love Annapolis. This is no shot at it, but it's a proper kind of preppy town. So when I saw that Motley Crue Looks That Kill video, I was like, what planet are these guys from? Like I never had saw anybody like that,
What did you listen to prior to that?
Prior to that, it was what was on the radio. So, my everything from, like I said, what would be on 98 Rock, so
Okay.
typical like AC/DC, things
Mm-hmm.
like that. Um, at that point, even the glam metal or glam rock, I should say, hadn't made it to radio. You were not hearing any Metallica or anything even at that point because those bands were only 1 to 2 years old at that time,
Yeah, yeah.
and
Do you listen
and
to DC
so
101 at all?
I did a little, but
Okay,
I
you're a 98
favored
rock guy.
97 Underground and 98 Rock, to be
Okay.
honest.
They were more
Um,
like rock stations.
yeah, yeah, Pat
Hmm.
Benatar, like stuff like that. And well, I was in my room and I heard that Ozzy Osbourne was coming to the Capitol Center, and the opening act was Motley Crue. So I go downstairs and I tell my mom, I'm like, look, we have got to get tickets to this concert. Well, my mom is a massive Ozzy Osbourne fan. So that was my shoe in, right? She didn't care about Motley Crue. It was the fact that you want to go see Ozzy, like, so we go to the Hex in the Annapolis Mall where the
Oh my
Ticketmaster was,
gosh.
you know?
Did you camp out?
No, no. But I got to see my first concert, I got to see Motley Crue and Shout the Devil opening for Ozzy. Um and then it was just off to the races because I was like, my mom loves to go to concerts with me. So we saw Metallica and Master of Puppets with Cliff Burton opening for Ozzy. We saw Twisted Sister. We saw Motorhead. We saw. I mean, it didn't matter. We just went. Me and my mom. My dad. He understood me, but he wasn't interested.
Yeah,
My
yeah.
mom was like, let's do it, right? So immediately, of course, I stopped cutting my hair. I was playing a lot of sports and stuff, but I was so influenced by MTV, to be
Sure.
honest. Like, to put that visual with music was
See, you
it.
and I, we're a year apart, I think.
Yeah,
And we came up in listened to literally the same radio station, probably went to the same concerts. Um, I miss those times, like
me
going to
too.
Hex to that little ticket booth that they had there. I went to the one in Temple Hills, like Marlow Heights,
Yep,
but I was in Annapolis all the time. And
yep.
like, I had the same experience with, it's funny. They thought I was really, really strange when I was a kid because I would lock myself in a room and listen to John Williams record players with the soundtrack of Star Wars. So that
Yeah,
was my musical like foundation. I taught myself how to play piano at 5, I think because of listening to all that, like for a year straight.
yeah.
But then I can see my evolution into harder and harder and harder, where I was listening to, like, my first concert was Bryan Adams at the Capitol Center. But then
Right
that
on.
turned into like Survivor, which was a little bit more edgier. And then that was
Yeah.
Night. I remember writing Night Ranger on a book. But
Awesome.
the
Yeah.
spring of 1986, I think I was 14, um, I heard Van Halen, and that just changed my life till this day. And
Hmm.
I had that same experience where my older sister, she knew they wouldn't let me go to the 5150 tour in '86, but they just thought it was Satan's music. My mom did,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I lost a couple I got them back, the cassettes and stuff, but my sister took me to the Hex in Boston Commons Mall in Arlington, and we camped out in the snow. And that was my first taste of Metallica because I didn't know what Metallica was.
Yeah.
And they scared the crap out of me, these guys. I woke up and they're pouring bourbon on a bush right next to me. It's on fire. Felt
Yeah.
great because it was snowing at the time. Like, we literally camped out snowing. But like, do you remember those times? And you'd go to the
Yeah.
music store and the
It's
smell of the cassette and all that.
Man, it's the best. Like, so Six, she has a great understanding of that. Of course, living with me, I have taken her, it's kind of it's so I've raised her alone since 10.
Yeah.
So it's been a give and take. I'll go to the Taylor Swift shows, but you're going to go with me to see Corrosion of Conformity. And she's seen Lamb of God, she's seen Slayer,
Yeah.
and it's really great because she really gets it. Like, she was so disappointed that high school wasn't the Breakfast Club.
Yeah.
Because these are the feelings you're talking about, like waiting in line for those tickets and then having to keep that ticket in your bedroom and not lose it for 2 months because you're looking forward to the show.
Yeah.
It just gives so much more meaning and like creates memories of than the instant
Well,
gratification.
you earn it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
for me, the funniest. the funniest memory that I have, and it's not a specific one. It's when you heard a song back then, it was only on the radio.
Yep.
So you had to record it, and inevitably the DJ's talk up the first 15 seconds of the intro of the song became a part of the song. So
Yeah.
even when 3 months later, after the single had been out and the album came out, psychologically you still heard that DJ the first couple months that you listened to that album.
Yep.
It's
It
like
became
little
part of
things
the
like
track.
it did, and
Hmm.
I miss those days.
Yeah, I feel the same with like MTV. Like
Oh
I I really truly loved MTV. I remember coming home in the afternoon and they would have like a 30-minute metal block, and Kerry King,
yeah,
when he still had long hair and had the nail bracelet, he would come out with his guitar and he would smash it against a gong, and they would have, and it was like that 30 minutes I was glued
yeah,
to, even though I'm not gonna lie, I love music videos. It could be Madonna.
uh-huh.
It could be it literally could be anything, Simple Minds, like whatever. Like I just loved the storyline and the image and it when I listened to the song, I there was things I could picture with it, and stuff that I could still to this day I could put on if VH1 Classic or someone's playing videos. I can put it on and just I don't really care what comes on. It could be New Edition. It could
Uh-huh.
be, like I really enjoy music videos, um, and
I've
it
been I've
it
been thinking
connects
that they
you.
need to bring MTV back like the way it was. Like even make it a YouTube channel. Like just dedicate some type of like
They
my kids
tried.
know
They
what it
tried
is.
with TRL. They
Yeah.
they actually did try with TRL a couple years ago, and um, you
It's different.
know, it's the instant gratification. The fact that you can go to YouTube and you can and just watch any video and listen to any
Yeah.
song whenever you want. There's no reason to watch it. I mean, that's
There
the
isn't. I
unfortunate.
don't watch any of these award shows anymore. I tried to watch the Grammys a couple days ago and I was just sickened by the whole thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's I don't know, it's sad, man. I have my daughter's turning 12. My son just turned 9. And not so much him. He's been to a handful of shows, but like she was my concert buddy, which
Yeah,
starting at like I took her to a so Mighty Mighty Bosstones.
awesome.
What is your connection with those guys? I'm gonna skip around because I noticed a while ago you had like sponsoring a racing team or something.
So
It,
I have a youth motocross team, and next year it will be 10 years old,
okay.
and basically, uh, long story short, I I love I love doing stuff for the kids. I love anytime if you want me to make a donation to something, it's going to be kid related. It's not going to be the police. It's not going to be the fire department. It's not going to if it will be a function for kids, that's where I like to do it, And I met this little kid, Clayton Stockstill at the time. He was like 6 years old, and he was a little motocross racer, and I got interested in him. And even though I'm into motorcycles, I've never got into motocross. And it was something that Six and I really enjoyed that neither of us took part in.
Hmm.
Because she was a soccer player and I had my and so it was nice for us to go enjoy something that didn't involve us. So I sponsored this kid, but I basically what I did is instead of just giving him money, I went and I got a bunch of sponsors. Everything that you would need to race, I got it. And I created a team. And I basically made it where it was academically driven. So I'm not going to necessarily pay attention to your finishes. I'm I just want you to be, you know, um, well educated, a good sport, and really having a good time. Like embrace these values. I do not want it to be mistaken with the participation trophy. I
Mm-hmm.
don't agree with the participation trophy. That's not what this is. It's just the thing with motocross is, for starters, it's so rare to ever become a pro. If you are going to become a pro, it's so hard on your body. You're
Mm.
never going to make it past 30. So if I could instill um, these things in them, I felt that it would carry on to a better part of their life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
So if you do the right thing in school and you're a good person and no matter what's going on at the track, you're realizing that I'm having a good time. I think that later on in life, when you go to get a college education or you go onto your career, you know that like what you put in is what you're going to get out.
Yeah.
And that will be recognized. And if you're just because you're winning the races, if you're a little ungrateful, jerk, no one wants that. No one wants that even in the professional world. Like I don't want to work with you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it went so well that I started picking up other riders, even though, and I still am with Clayton today.
How old is he now?
And he is 15 and a half. He's just about to get his learner's
Oh
permit.
my gosh.
Um, and that's basically what it's about. So I many years ago, 2002, I did the Warp tour managing Good Charlotte, and the Ballstones were on the tour, and I always loved them.
Uh-huh.
Well, then Clayton, his dad, who's right around our age, he used to play in ska bands, so their family loves ska, and Clayton loves the Ballstones. Well, then, connecting. My friend Toby Morris, who sings for H2O, um,
Uh,
have you listened to his podcast?
no.
He's got a podcast called One Life, One Chance
Okay.
podcast. It is awesome.
I
Really,
love that
really awesome.
band.
You have to
I
check it
just
out.
no one knows that band, and I love that band. I
They they still play.
yeah. I found out about that band. So I worked with the Ballstones for a number of years,
Oh,
and
okay.
around when they would come into town, and
Yeah.
I remember being on the side of the stage, kind of like this, just watching H2O, and I was just mesmerized by them. And then I look over to my left, and Dickie from the Ballstones is there, kind of doing the same thing. He's like, "What do you think of these guys?" And we just had to talk about it. But
Yeah.
they're great, like a
Yeah.
great
Yeah.
punk, like just
Yeah.
awesome, awesome.
So Toby is obviously friends with them.
Yeah.
And when Six and I lived in LA, um, we would sometimes go down to the Kimmel show
Hmm.
and hang in the green room, and Dickie works for Kimmel.
Yep.
And so then I got to know him a little bit as well. But he's on the reason the Ballstones are on the dirt bike is all because Clayton it's his tribute
Okay.
to the Ballstones,
Yeah.
which is really cool to see a 15-year-old today know who that band is. But yeah, you should definitely check out Toby's
I
podcast.
will. Absolutely.
It's very like PMA. Um, it does bands, it does actors, it does just good people, like just good positive just people in the community.
Hmm.
It's not like you would think it would just be a big Warp Tour reunion. That's not it at all.
Yeah.
He does, anyone that I think he feels like would get and he does it all from his kitchen. They have to come in his kitchen and sit at the table and
Oh,
do
that's
it with
great.
him. It's really cool.
So unexpected too. Like you wouldn't
Yeah.
think, H2O singer. That's
Yeah.
great. They have one of
Yeah.
my all-time favorite songs. And now I
What's
can't
that?
it's the song God, I can't remember that now. I'm having a brain fart now. It's the song that starts off with a girl talking.
Oh, yeah.
Um I'm going to have to pull my phone out. It's one of my all-time like
Yeah.
the lyrics of that song
Yeah.
are just like more profound than you think like a ratty little punk band would write. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Toby is the king of PMA.
Yeah.
And that One Life, One Chance, before it became his podcast, it's a nonprofit that he does. And he
Oh,
goes and he speaks at like high schools and things like that, because, he is a straight edge guy. He is covered in tattoos. His son Max is one of Six's best friends. Max is 1 year younger. And he's just an awesome dad. Moon's an awesome mom, and I think it's his, his impression that he has on the kids is like, I can look like this and I can live this life, but I didn't fall to drugs and I didn't fall to alcohol and I didn't fall to like gang violence. And and I mean, even though he speaks everywhere, he lives in LA now, and LA it's so accessible for all of that, so he's a great role model for the community.
How'd you stay out of that, or did you?
I've never even tasted a beer. I've never
Really?
I've never done anything ever in my life. Um, my dad was one of those guys that like he was a beer drinker, especially like if you're like mowing the grass.
Yeah.
Like so I didn't have any bad experiences. I don't come from like a super religious family or anything. It was just I loved motorcycles, which I thought was a bad combination, and I just like being in control,
Yeah.
like it
Yeah, but
just
all those tours, and we'll get into all that, but like, that's
I've
amazing.
seen it all. I have seen the ups and downs
Yeah.
and of all of it. This might be a little bit off topic, but something that I struggle with as a parent is I even though I could be that parent that says, "Look, six, I'm the parent. That's why. I'm the adult.
Hmm.
That's why." Like you could power through that if you wanted to be that parent. But like I feel like that I like to justify things to her, like meaning that like I don't want to say to her, you shouldn't do it, but it's okay that I do it.
Mm.
Um, I really, really try my best to lead by example. I realize we have a huge age difference, and we're at different points in our life where there's things that I may do that she shouldn't do only because of the age difference. But how could I possibly tell you weed's bad for you if you know I'm smoking weed all day every day?
Yeah.
Like so I don't know, like that's always been a tough argument for me is parenting how do you justify that in your kids?
It's hard because they see it. Kids see it. Kids see
Yeah.
hypocrisy.
I mean, she has a lot of faith in me, as far as, when I make a decision, even if it's not always the correct decision, she I think she sees why I made the decision,
Hmm.
right? And I just can't, there's no way I could say to her, it's cool for me to do this, but you should never do this.
Yeah.
I just, you know, I can't do
So,
that.
in my mind, we're doing this interview completely backwards, but maybe we're not because. So, I'll tell you this: I've just met you for the first time today, but you've been on my radar for the last couple of years. And one thing I'll say to you, dad to dad, is that I adore the relationship that it appears that you have with Six.
Yeah.
And it's just you can people see it, and
Yeah.
it's something that a lot of dads should look into. I'm reading this book and have been. It's called Strong Fathers Raising Strong Daughters, and it's really all about you and I are the most important thing and the most important relationship to these daughters that we have, period.
For sure.
And that's another thing that's not really discussed. And we have so many, you know, families that don't have dads, or they're there, but they don't connect, or they're not engaged in that way. And
Yeah.
I just want to tell you, man to man, I appreciate you doing that. And I appreciate the relationship you have with your daughter. And quite honestly, it's been an inspiration to me watching from afar
That's
you guys
awesome.
interact with each other.
That really means a lot because it is, you know, all the music stuff and all that stuff. It's really cool,
Yeah.
but really, being her dad is that's really all that matters. It doesn't come with a check. It doesn't come. You know what I mean?
It not only doesn't come with a check, it asks a lot of money from you.
Dude, but it's truly the best. And there are some bad times. I mean, like I will tell you, like age 14 to 16,
Oh, don't. I don't want to hear.
you know, I I honestly, there was
Oh
times where I was
no.
like, what was I thinking? Like how did how did I think this was going to be? How did I think she would just be the one special one? And then, and then I think it's up to you as a parent to really try to understand not only them as a teen, but as becoming a woman, right? You're a male, right? So now you have to understand that some of her actions she can't even control.
Yeah.
Like she some of it she can, and the things that she can't, you would never tell her that that because now she'll use that as a crutch,
So the
right?
interesting thing you just said, though, in the book that I'm reading, it specifically says in that age frame that you're talking about is that they're going to do things just to test you, just to see
Definitely.
if you still stick around. And
Definitely.
that's the key. Just regardless of what
Well,
it is, ride the boat and take it wherever it goes. Be the
yeah.
leader, but like never, ever, ever let them feel that you've you've given up, or
Yep. Yep.
that's the secret.
And it's been really awesome. It's what's cool is like, and this feeling is, it doesn't matter how crappy of a day you have or what's going on in your life, they're stoked that you're you.
Yeah.
They're stoked that you're their dad. They're stoked that you're on their team. And that, I think that conquers everything, and I, even through my years of like touring and stuff like that, I take a lot of pride in my work. I always give it 110%. But at the end of the day, it's a job. And I know that when I get to go back home, I'm going to be her dad, and it doesn't matter to James Hetfield. It doesn't matter to Tim McGraw. It doesn't matter to the fans, and it doesn't matter how many tickets we sold, and it doesn't matter how many tractor trailers we have. Like,
Hmm.
it's just a concert,
You know
and
what's cool about that though? They're the James Hetfields of the world that feel the same way we do.
yeah.
So even though they're on, doing their thing and it's a means to an end, they still would rather be back home, or the families with them out, on tour as well, or on
Yeah.
set or something like that. And it's funny. It's like those of us that feel that way kind of gravitate towards each other because we know
Yeah.
what's real.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. And the fact that there's some parents that don't take advantage of that time, I don't really understand it. I mean, I don't connect with everything that crosses my path in my life, but
right.
this is one thing that it's part of you. Like, how could you not connect with this? How could this not be the most important thing?
I'm telling
How is
you,
this bothersome?
it's so, I'm sure. So I lost my dad 8 years ago. 8 years ago? Yeah. And I'm sure he hates when I bring this up, but I think it's important to talk about.
Yeah.
Um, we didn't talk for 12 years. And when I was a kid, he was there, but he wasn't emotionally there. So it's like, I remember still what it felt like to go, hey, do you want to go throw the ball around? Well, after this TV show, or after this, or after this. And it was
Yeah.
never, yeah, let's do it right now. And I don't recall him ever asking me, ever once, hey, how was your day? I don't recall that at all. But it was still, I mean, I don't want to paint he just wasn't emotionally connected. He
Yeah.
blamed his lack of relationship with his dad. And I always just thought that was BS because we all have the choice to make decisions. And my mom has asked me over the year. So let me go back a little bit. We didn't talk for 12 years. My parents literally, he came home late one night. They got into a big fight. He left the next morning, moved out of the house, like that, literally like that. So I didn't talk to him for 12 years after that. I was pissed off. But we got back together and we learned a lot about each other for 10 years prior to his death. And
Hmm.
it was awesome. And
Hmm.
I got an appreciation and for why he did the way. I still don't understand it, but I understand why he felt that, different
Hmm.
time. He didn't know how to, whatever. But my mom has asked me over the years, how you didn't have, quite honestly, the best of parents, I've let you down here and there, and your dad, you felt that you wanted him more in your life. How did you become this parent that you are now? And my answer was, well, I always knew those excuses were BS, and I knew what I wanted as a kid. So why wouldn't my kids want those same things? So if I
Right.
just give those to them, and that's the one thing about parenthood that, what would I want in this situation? And I know they're individual
Exactly.
people, but overall, kids just want the same thing. They want to be seen. They want to be heard. They want attention. So like,
Yeah.
people make fun of me all the time. I play that game Fortnite with my kids like it's a religion, because it's
Yeah.
connecting me to the kids, and
Yeah.
my
Exactly.
son will come down and you go, you want to play pew pew? And I'm like, let's do it. It's
Yeah.
never unless I'm on a call like this, it's never all right, let's do it now. So it's
Yeah.
probably to my fault. I'm like, whatever it is that you want to do, let's do it now.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, do you think that though I'm with you, there's no excuse. You can make changes in your life and make choices. But do you think it also comes with just like the era and the generation
I
that they
do.
are?
It's hard for me
Because
to admit that, because I don't know. I don't know why that's hard for me to admit. It took a long time for me to come to that. And I knew my grandfather.
yeah,
It was always my dad's dad was an alcoholic, but my grandfather wasn't. So he
yeah.
he straightened out some point in the
But he
middle.
wasn't getting that love and compassion either.
Dude, so my dad got lung cancer, brain cancer, and he fought for 16 months. And I remember one time, I'm like, hey, listen, you're like the gatekeeper of this stuff. We all kind of knew where it was going. And I'm like, I'm going to drive you downtown. And you tell me when to make lefts and rights, and just show me where you grew up, and tell me stories of
Yeah,
stuff. And we
yeah.
were in Anacostia, and we drove by the fire station there. And just like as easy it would be for him to say, yeah, my favorite color's blue, he just looked at the fire station and goes, yeah, that's where they would drop me off. I'm like, what does that mean? He goes, oh, they would go out drinking and have the fire guys babysit me.
Look after me.
Yeah. And that's so foreign of a thought for us
Hmm.
nowadays. Like, what do you mean? Like, they don't do that.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
I heard it in his voice how much that hurt him.
Hmm.
And it stuck with him all those years. And I think that treatment and other things that he told me just paralyzed him when I came around. I was his
Hmm.
first kid, and
Hmm.
he just didn't know what to do,
And how to express it.
and how to express it.
Because when you hear me talk about my parents, you hear me say my mom, my mom, my
Yep.
mom. My dad, again, he's still married to my mom. He's still in my life, but he was not a part of that stuff.
Mm.
But I feel like it's kind of the same thing. My grandfather. I'm a third. I used to stay at my grandparents' house all the time, and I remember how my grandfather was, and I see it, and of course at the time as a teenager, I didn't really like him for it because when he's never seen me play football, he's never seen me play ice hockey. He was a construction worker during the day and a volunteer fireman for 35 years.
Wow.
um, but I'm an only child, and then when I had six, um, it something got into him, and he one day, we were burning some stuff in the backyard, and
Yeah.
he's like, I know I missed everything with you, but I will not miss anything with her. Like it's the I've realized it. And she is you, and
Yeah.
I can't I it's the only way I'm going to experience the youth,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And as much as like at the time I was so resentful, like gosh, I was probably the only kid that did not like firemen. Like honestly, like
You
every
attach
kid
that to
wants to
your,
get on a fire truck, and I hated those guys. I had nothing good for them. Like totally different obviously now. But and then I don't know if you've read any of Nikki Sixx's stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But he talks about how much his grandmother raised him, and how much uh hate he had for his dad. And he recently wrote something about like, now that I'm at this age and da 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 da, I I'd never really looked at it through my dad's eyes. And even though I don't necessarily agree with everything, I wish I could have saw it from his side then.
Yeah, it would have changed a lot of things.
What he was going through and what he was feeling, and we won't ever realize that until
No.
we're older.
So I had a lot of resentment towards my dad. And in those 10 years that we patched things up, there were still times where I just scratched my head going, what? Like, I don't like, I'll tell you a really quick story. I got food poisoning. They didn't know what it was. So I drove myself to the hospital. My wife and 2 kids were at the house, and I was supposed to see either my dad or my mom that day. So I texted both of them and said, "Hey, listen, I think they're both supposed to come over, and I can't. I'm in the hospital. Don't worry. They don't know what it is. It's probably nothing, but we have to move this thing." Da 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 da. That was it. My phone ended up dying. So I get out of the hospital. Come to find out, it was food poisoning. But I talked to him either that night or the next day. I remember this clear as day. And he's like, talking about, oh, I got to get this new iPhone and damn thing's not working and da 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 da. And I'm like, dude, did you get that text? He goes, yeah, you're in the hospital. Like, what are you? Really? That's it? And I was like, I gotta go. And I just hung up the phone. I'm like, what? I don't, where's that? But I learned, it sounds so bad, and this isn't making excuses. It's just, I gotta take what I got, like that's what, that's where his brain is. But I will say this, I sat across my dining room table from him one day, and I'm known for just asking really hard questions out of the blue. Like, we could be a good dinner. I'm like, so why did you leave? Because I've had to sit with it all these years. Why am I making life comfortable for you? So we were sitting at the table one day, and very similar to your story, I looked at him and I said, I got a question for you. And he's like, what's that? And we were eating steak. And I said, are you looking at this as a second chance? He goes, what do you mean? I said, your relationship with your granddaughter, is this you trying to be the best dad you could be for me through her? And he goes, yeah. He goes, I missed a lot of time and I screwed it up. And by getting close to her in some weird way, I'm even getting closer to you. And I said, well, it's working. Like it makes my heart feel better, and it kind of closes the gap. And it says a lot that you would even do that now, because that's what I wanted. And it's fixing me that you're doing that with her.
And it's so cool that, that, how do I want to say this? Like, I guess I don't totally know how to say it, but I think it's cool that they didn't just give up on it and just be like, went this long, you know what I mean? Like, why try now, right? And that's cool. And I know what it was, is that what you took from it, like what you took from who they were then to what they are now, and you chose to be who you are.
Yeah.
And I feel like, as much as we've all had those friends that have had everything, have had like the best home, family, financially set, and they turned out to be life failures. And what you took from how you grew up and your experiences to what kind of parent you have become and your values, it's sort of like it was meant to work out that way.
Yeah. Well, it was a decision, though. I made a decision. I did not want that cycle, that family cycle, to continue. I wanted to feel good about my last name. I didn't want to look back and go, oh, it happened again. I just was like, it's not happening again.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I love this conversation, because I have a ton of, I mean, we haven't even talked about your career and all that stuff, but this is the important stuff, I think. So it's
well, and like, you, real quick, like when you said, well, people think, you smoke weed, like, dude, like, between drugs, alcohol, and the Hells Angels, everyone assumes I'm a part of all that. And I was a glorified soccer dad, like
Yeah, yeah.
I just look the part of all that craziness, but I was just a soccer dad and a stage dad, like the only great thing behind it was when we go into auditions and I sit in the room, everyone stays clear. Like they don't, those moms will not come anywhere near
No.
me. So I don't have to talk about all that stupid crap and all that. They just prejudge, and I love it.
Yeah,
It saves me all the crazies and the fakes.
yeah. That's awesome. All right, so let's get into the career. You, if I do I understand this correctly? You wanted to be a tattoo artist at 12.
Yeah, like I loved, again, such a weird thing because it wasn't big in my family,
Mm-hmm.
but I just really took to tattoos. I really loved them.
Do you remember the first
Um,
tattoo you saw that you were like, "Oh, I want that"?
yeah. And I didn't get that tattoo, but I knew when I saw it, I was like, dude, I'm gonna have something like that. Is Harley from the Cro-Mags has that big dragon on
Uh-huh.
his chest. And I saw the Cro-Mags open for Motorhead. I didn't even have a driver's license. And when I saw that chest tattoo, I was like, I'm 100% like, I'm getting something like that. Like, I
Yeah, yeah.
just thought he looked so cool. Um,
Do you, by the way, a little detour. Do you remember how loud that Motorhead concert was?
Loud.
They're loud.
Like, I mean, ears ringing
Yeah.
to the next day. That was like Filthy Phil on drums
Uh-huh.
still, and so good. It was at Warner Theater in DC.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the chairs were completely like torn out
Oh,
of the
yeah.
place, and um, yeah. So I just loved them. I expressed it to my mom. I loved them, and she said, as cool as she said, if you get a tattoo even a day before you're 18, I will kill you. And I was like, okay, fair enough. So on my 18th birthday, you know exactly where I was.
Where
Um,
was your first like where did you go to for your first tattoo?
so at the time, there wasn't quite as many tattoo shops as there are now. And there was this one in Fort Meade that I knew of, called Gemini. And I went in like the week before, and I'm looking around the wall, and there was their receptionist guy,
Mm-hmm.
that helps out in the front. He was such a jerk. Like, he, at that time, you just picked off the wall, and they would give you a price, and if it was going on a special part of your body, there'd be an additional fee for that. and,
Hmm.
and I was like, well, I really like that phoenix, and I want to get it on my upper arm, but I want to get it up high enough that the tail feathers actually kind of crest over my shoulder a little bit. And he's like chuckling and like, I mean, if you can afford it. And I was like, well, how much will it be? And he told me, and just really kind of like made me feel like, well, I was a 17-year-old kid. Like, how are you? So I came in on my birthday and I went right to him, and I'm like, I'm getting that one right there today. Boom. It's
Here's the
got
money.
cash in my pocket, and I couldn't wait to make him eat his words. And then literally the very next Friday, I was in
Oh
again,
my
and the
gosh.
very next Friday, I was in again. And I was all through my high school years, I was pumping gas on the full serve island of an Exxon. And so between my paycheck and tips and stuff, like, every day, every payday, I would just go, and my mom was like, whatever, you just didn't do it before you were 18. So
Yeah.
I don't have one of those stories of like, well, I was in my friend's basement, or I got a fake ID, or I really truly waited till my 18th birthday. But within a year, I was already getting like really covered.
Within a year.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'm talking like, I mean, I wasn't buying beer, I wasn't buying cigarettes. So I had the cash.
Yeah.
And well, so that studio, after being in there, I mean, I was in there like almost every day of the week, even when I wasn't getting tattooed. I just loved it. I just loved being in there. I loved having conversation with the people that were coming
It
in.
was
I
your
loved the
barbershop.
designs. Hmm?
It was your barbershop.
Yeah, totally. So the lady that owned the place, she said, "Well, look, you're here all the time. If you want, you can help customers, and I'll just trade you your time for tattoos." And I'm like, done. Um, so I worked my day job. I ended up quitting the gas station. You'll love this, you being a guitar guy. And I got a job at Paul Reed Smith
That's
Guitars.
on my list to talk to you about.
Yeah. And
What
so
did you
when I
do
would
there?
get off the guitar factory, I would go to the tattoo shop. Well, then after doing that, she was like, always was interested in tattooing, but whenever you ask someone about an apprenticeship, they immediately they'll just chop your head off.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not teaching you. And then they like treat you different too. Like they think you're only coming around because you want to learn. So I never brought it up. And she said, "Hey, have you ever had an interest in learning how to tattoo?" And I'm like, "Yes, I have." And I basically said to her what I said to you. I was like, I just was too afraid to ask. And she's like, "We've never met anyone more committed. I mean, you're here like every day. Like you want to be here more than we want to be here."
Were you an
So,
artist at any point? Did you draw at that time? Did you
uh,
show
I mean,
creative an
you know,
inclination?
like just like tattoo wise, I never was like a painter or nothing more than what you would just take in
Yeah.
junior high, high
Okay.
school. So I started an apprenticeship. It was a very traditional apprenticeship where back then you were not allowed to be affiliated with any other shop. You couldn't even get tattooed by other people. It's not like today. Like it was very secretive.
Hmm.
Like what goes on here stays here.
Yeah.
Um, and that's that. Well, um, fast forwarding I did a 5-year apprenticeship. Now keep in
Wow.
mind, 5 years, about 40 hours a week with no pay. So I worked 40 hours at the guitar factory, another 40 hours at the tattoo shop for no pay. But I wanted to learn. And like I said, it's a very old school way of doing things. So a big part of tattoo apprenticeships isn't learning how to tattoo. It's really just testing your loyalty.
Hmm.
Because once I teach you this trade, you could easily become my competition.
Yeah.
So as far as learning the tattoo, no, it does not take 5 years to learn how to tattoo. It's just your loyalty. So about 2.5 years in, one of my good friends who was affiliated with another shop, we went and saw um, Biohazard, Sepultura, and Pantera at Merriweather. And my friend was one of those people when he gets drinking, he is rowdy. And he was up on top of the crowd, in the
Yeah.
seated area. And when the security would try and pull him down, he was like kicking them. And well, they finally got a hold of him and they took him off to the side and they pile drived him into the embankment and they severed his
Oh
spine.
my
And
gosh.
he instantly was a quadriplegic.
Wow.
Instantly. So he got put at shock trauma, was on life support. Um, I I was telling, obviously my people that were teaching me to tattoo, I was like, when I get off, I'm going to be going to the hospital. My friends there, and blah 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 blah. They were butthurt that I was communicating and friends with someone from another shop, and I'm like, you guys, like this is way bigger than tattooing. Like he may not live. I mean, he's like on life support right
Yeah.
now. This isn't about tattooing. Every day they kept riding me and riding me and riding me. And finally one day I was like, you know what? I don't care about learning how to tattoo. Like my friend's on his deathbed, and if you can't see past that, then you can, just find another apprentice. So I quit. And literally that day, as I'm walking into shock trauma, the tattoo shop he was affiliated with was called Little Vinny's in Westminster. And Vinny was coming out of his room and he asked how it was and how my apprenticeship was going. And I said, ironically, I literally just quit because they have a problem with me coming here and seeing Brian. And he was so taken by it. He was like, "You can just continue your apprenticeship at my shop then. That's ridiculous." And what was great about that is they were a bit more new school. So I've gotten a few years of the very old traditional and now the new
Mm.
school. I'm getting both sides. Or so otherwise I was going to give up on the whole tattoo thing.
Well,
Um and then off, went off from there. I became a tattooer and um
how did you get noticed by
so
these
um
bands and stuff?
okay. So around 97, 98, I switched to a shop in Georgetown that had just opened called Jinx Proof,
Mm-hmm.
and was working there. That was great. And uh, I'm trying to think how it all came about. I had a friend that I tattooed on NSYNC that and at this point NSYNC was just breaking through,
Mm-hmm.
like becoming like massive. And like No Strings Attached was they're playing stadiums. And he was like he had reached out and he said, the guys in NSYNC want to be tattooed by you. They had saw what you did on me and we're going to be playing RFK Stadium. Would you come down and tattoo? And this is so funny. And I was like, yeah, sure. Not funny because it's in sync. It's just funny how just things happen. So when they came to RFK, I went down there. I took off work, and I met them all, hung out, like sat there all day and didn't do a single tattoo. So I was like, well, thanks for having me. If you guys want to catch up again, you know how to get a hold of me. They were so awesome,
Yeah.
And so literally later that week, they called and were like, "Hey, we've sold out the Garden 5 nights in a row, and we're also filming an HBO special. Why don't you come spend the week in New York with us?" And I was like, "Okay, I can make that happen." So I moved my schedule around, and I went to New York. They gave me a hotel and private car, and I had one of the dressing rooms in the Garden was my room. I was next to Pink, who was their opening act,
That's
right?
crazy.
I am there 5 days, and I never tattooed any of
So
them
what
because
was
they're in,
what
in New
was
York. They're so busy,
what? Why
like
did you go there? Did you what capacity did you go there like to fulfill? Tattooing?
yeah, just
Okay.
a tattoo, right? So while I was there, though, I tattooed Britney Spears. I tattooed Summer Altice, who was like Playmate of June
What
that
did you do on
year.
Britney?
I reworked that little fairy on her lower
Okay.
back.
Yeah.
It was already there. I tattooed a bunch of other people, but I never tattooed them. So at the end, I was like, you guys, like, thank you for an incredible week. Again, you know where to find me. And they were like, well, what are you doing tomorrow? And I was like, well, I'll be doing what I was doing before I met you, just be back in DC. And they were like, well, just come to the next city. Well, long story short, I never came back home. Like I stayed for the entire leg of the tour. And I ended up tattooing them, and one of them, which was the most like, the one that really, really put things on the map was not only did I tattoo Britney during that time, but I tattooed the cross on Justin Timberlake's arm.
That's you?
And that was a big deal. And what's funny is like when I was just about to tattoo him, he looks me in the face and he's like, this is gonna change things for both of us. And I was like, shut up. Like it may change things for you, but unless
Why
you
would
walk
that
around with
change things for him? Like make him more gritty or something?
Yeah, because
Okay.
he didn't have any, I mean, you got to think this is the early 2000s,
Yeah.
and their skin was clean besides some stuff on their legs. Um and I'm like, if my name isn't on your arm, no one's going to have any idea who I am,
Yeah.
And I'm glad you want me to do this tattoo, but don't blow this smoke up my butt. I don't give a crap. Well, oh my God, he was so right. Like it went crazy. Like the next couple days they filmed like a video and he purposely wore like a wife beater in
Hmm.
the video and but man, when I got back to Georgetown, the the phone was going crazy. Like all the college students were like wanting to get tattooed by the guy that tattoos Justin and Brittany and there was radio stations calling and it and then the next thing you know, Planet Hollywood contacted me and they were like, we're doing a fundraiser. We're selling these T-shirts and the money will go to these charities and Justin's doing one and Brittany's doing one and um, Justin said he'd like to do something with you and the cross for the shirt. So could we do that with you? And then he's a big golfer, and then there was a golf company that was like, we want to make this cross buckle for him to wear in this like special tournament. It they had crosses on golf balls even. It was mind blowing. It really he was absolutely right. It changed
And he looked
everything.
out for you, it sounds like.
Yeah, so the leg was over. I was home a few weeks, and then I get a call, and basically it was NSYNC's people saying like, "Hey, we wanted to know if you wanted to take an actual job on the tour, not tattooing." And I was like, you know, I don't, I don't know that that's for me. Like they're not a band.
Yeah.
They're they're in sync. Like they're as big as the Beatles right now in the millennium, and and they were basically like, look, we don't really care what you think. Like you make them really happy, and when they're happy, everybody's happy. So it was going to be like taking care of their dressing rooms, like setting up their dressing rooms, and they had like a game room and a tanning bed and like, you know, and it I just remember it coming over me and I'm like, "You know what? Like I know how to tattoo. Like this is an opportunity I should take." At the time it I think my starting pay was like $800 a week. It was for a band that size, that wasn't nothing, So I took a hit in pay, and they were like, "Look, on the day off, our crew all has per diem and cash. You can tattoo all you want, but on the work days, you're on NSYNC's time." So I took it, and I did 2 albums with them. Excuse me, I did 2 touring cycles, and
The same job?
well, that's the thing. So at every leg, it seemed to get more and more and more responsibility. And
Yeah.
then I started thinking, and I'm like, man, this is as big as it gets. So when they're not in the building and my job's done, I'm going to go see what the carpenters are doing. Before you know it, I even got the accountant to let me sit in on settlements. I was just going to absorb everything I possibly could. So when they finally went on their hiatus in 2001, um, Good Charlotte, who's from Maryland, was just getting ready to put out um, the Lifestyles and the Rich and Famous, the Young and the Hopeless,
Hmm.
and they were and Benj and Joel. I have known them since they were like little kids on Razor scooters,
Really? How about?
because they were always around Annapolis.
Oh, okay.
They're from Waldorf,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they were like, "Hey, would you be our tour manager?" And I was like, "Bench, like I've never done it before, but I have a lot of faith in what I just experienced. I can figure this out." Because they were just starting out in B market clubs, I'm like, I can figure this out. And he was like, "Great." man, halfway through the year, that album got so big, we were headlining arenas
Yeah.
the same year. We went from clubs to the United Center, you know?
What kind of tour manager with you? Because I've dealt with tour managers and they're not generally pleasant to deal with. And you're a nice guy. So did you
So,
flip a switch or did you do
you
things
know,
Frankie's way?
with Good Charlotte, I made a little bit of a mistake, um, because it was such a learning time for me. Um, I came from the A list, as big as it gets. Every moving part does its part,
Mm-hmm.
and the artists were also very on point. And when I got with these guys, I really struggled with like um, being on time and things like that. And I was so wired to be this well-oiled, synchronized machine that was really tough for me. And I felt like I went from being a really nice guy to, being frustrated. When I look back on it, I don't really think that that was the way that I learned a lot from it. That wasn't the way that I should have handled it because, you know what, at the end of the day, like, it's their band. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, if they want to be late, be late. I'm going to give you the advice why if you're late, it may cost you
Oh, you
this
were
or that.
demanding that they'd be on time and
Yeah, because there's I didn't for me, I didn't want them to lose opportunities. This was the biggest
mm-hmm.
time in their career. They literally went from a club band to an arena band, and every radio station was going crazy for them. And so I had a bit of a personal relationship with them
Yeah.
where I really cared. I wasn't like, I don't care if you make the interview, you know? Um, but that was okay. So I finished it.
How's your relationship
Um,
now with them?
good,
Okay.
good. It ended fine, but we just were not in the same place. And I definitely think part of it was just what I had come from,
Mm-hmm.
and it's okay. If you're not making mistakes, you're not learning anything. So so this is where it gets really funny. So I then, like, as soon as I finished with them, one of my friends who's the stage manager for the Stones says, we're going to do this Euro stadium tour and we need extra set carpenters because the set is so
Huge.
giant.
Yeah.
I I've never been a set carpenter, but I'm like, sure, like, just keep putting money in my bank account. Like, I'll figure it out. So I went and worked on the set and all that stuff for that tour, and that's just basically how my career went. Like, sometimes I'm the tour manager, sometimes I'm a personal assistant, sometimes I'm a set carpenter, sometimes I'm the production manager, sometimes I'm the tour coordinator. And I did this Spice Girls reunion tour. I did a leg of it. And this guy Springo, who is their production manager, and he's like a legend. He's really, really great at his job. And I really look up to him. And he said to me, I was a set carpenter for that. And they had a guy that originally was hired for the tour, and he was having trouble getting into Canada. So they got rid of him and brought me out. And he was like, I don't understand it. You were just a tour manager. Why are you working as a set carpenter? Like, you're going backwards. You should never do that. And I was like, Springo, like, I was like, for starters, I don't care what my job is. You just worry about making sure the money goes into my bank account. That's all I care about. The other thing is when I'm a tour manager, if I've done all these jobs, I'm a better tour manager. When not only do I know what it takes to do the job, I know what it takes to make a budget because I've done the job. Like, do I really need 6 people for this, or could I get away with 4? Do I really need this many tractor trailers, or could I pack it different? Or so I'm using all of these, what you think is a backstep, as an advantage
Mm-hmm.
for when I'm back in charge, no one's pulling the wool over my eyes, you know? I know how it goes.
You remind me a lot of Jesse James, not even tattoos aside. He looks at that as a toolbox. You put more tools in your toolbox.
Yep.
And these are nothing but toolboxes, and or the
Yeah.
tools that go in your toolboxes. And the more tools you have in that toolbox, the more valuable you are.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, totally. Especially when it comes to money. That's the key to everything, right? You know, I mean, when I tour managed Rob Zombie, he gave me one of the hardest challenges, and I was happily accepting it. Was I he told me what he wanted his show to be. All the pyro, all the
Mm-hmm.
gags, you know, everything. I budgeted it out. And when I took it to him, he says, um, we're $100,000 over where I want to be. And he's like, I'm going to be honest with you. If if I'm not going to come on tour and make money, I'm going to stay home and make a movie.
Mm-hmm.
There's there's no incentive, you know? And I was like, I get it. So I went back. I did shave 100 grand. I gave him options though. Like, but if I didn't understand pyro, if I didn't understand the set, if I didn't understand the tractor trailers, that would have never happened. And when I could go to him and say, we're going to lose this effect, but this thing does a very similar thing and we can use it for two different looks,
Mm-hmm.
you know, or whatever. And he was like, let's go. That's we're on it. That's what we're doing, you know? Like that you can't do that if you're just the boss all the time.
Yeah.
You're leaving that in other people's hands.
Did you continue to tattoo during all these like manager
Yeah.
gigs and?
So I did. Whenever I would come home, I had my clientele, and all you know, awesomely, I tattooed most of the clients that I toured with. Like I have tattooed Rob Zombie, I have tattooed Tim McGraw, um, I have tattooed Michelle Branch. You know, like so
So I have a list here. NSYNC, we covered that. Did you tour with Metallica?
4 years.
What capacity?
Yeah. So my very first tour of Metallica was in 2004 on St. Anger. It was another European set carpenter
Why
thing.
doesn't anyone like that album? I like
Um,
that album.
I I like the album. I think people's biggest complaint is the drums. They don't like the sound of the drums. Um, and Metallica doesn't play anything off of that album in their set
They
list,
don't.
so they know what kind of impact it had on their career. You know.
I even
Um,
I even like that Lou Reed thing they did.
I didn't like that.
There's one song on it that I like, and it's like
Yeah.
it's I forget the name of it now, but it's a little groovy. It is what it is, you know. It's it's
Yeah.
Lou Reed, but
Yeah.
it's like I don't understand. I mean, I get it. People are so butthurt about that Saint Anger album, though.
It's 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 a no-win situation for Metallica. You know, you've been a band for over 30 years now. If you put out the same album, you get flack for putting out the same album.
Yeah,
If you try to put out something new, you get flack because it doesn't sound like Master of Puppets. And on top of it, like they want to play new stuff. They want to stay fresh in their career. If you have to come, if you every day you just had to interview the same person,
you know, I
it
I
it
I lived through this with the whole Van Halen Van Hagar thing. With you know, there is a divided camp between the David Lee Roth fans, and then
definitely,
everything changed with Sammy Hagar.
definitely.
And I always looked at that and went, well, wait a minute. Like, keyboards were introduced in 1984. I'll wait is not and jump is nothing like what you liked, but you like it because David Lee Roth is on it. But yet that 5150 album rocks. There's three
Mhm.
keyboard songs on it. One doesn't even sound like one. But you're okay with Just a Gigolo and California. Like he's going that way anyway, you know? And
Yeah,
like I
yeah,
don't understand. And
yeah,
it's I mean, I don't know. It's fans. It's fandom, you know?
yeah. I mean, if they released four more Master Puppets, Master Puppets wouldn't be that cool anymore.
No.
You know what I mean? Like you look forward to Master of Puppets. I I personally um am a big Metallica fan, and I will tell you that I don't really like any of the Jason Newsted years besides
Really?
Injustice for All. Like, um, but I do understand why they did it.
You mean with
I don't want
Jason?
to hear. Hmm?
With Jason in particular?
No, I understand why they changed their
Yeah,
music.
yeah.
I don't think Jason was the cause of that, but I'm just saying, like the load and unload days and all that.
Does
Like,
that include the look of the band as well?
yeah, for
Okay.
sure, for sure. I, I, you know, I don't want to hear James sing Bob Seger, and as much as Whiskey in the Jar, like people love it, especially when they play it in Ireland.
Yeah.
I hate when Metallica does that. I don't like it at all. I like when Metallica, if they're gonna cover, I want to hear them cover the Misfits and Diamond Head
Yeah.
and Motorhead and stuff like that. But I get why they did
What
it.
did you think of
You
the Lady
know,
Gaga collab?
I liked it.
Yeah.
I liked it. But here's a weird thing. My buddy Marcel, who has a tattoo shop in Germany, he's a little younger than me. So the Black album on is like his
Okay.
Metallica, right? He loves all the S&M stuff. Like the other day he was raving to me. He's like, "You've really got to give the S&M 2 a chance. Like it's so good." And I don't I don't like it. I really can appreciate what's behind it. Um but I feel like I'm listening to a movie soundtrack. It's I mean, if you put a bunch of strings and flutes behind any band, I I know that sounds so bad because I really truly love them. But I'm not talking about as a friendship. I'm not talking about as an employee. I'm talking about as a Metallica fan. It just sounds like a movie soundtrack,
Are
and
you
you know,
are you allowed to have these feelings and thoughts with those guys?
yes,
Okay.
yes, yes. Um, because especially James and Lars, like they have no filter either.
Yeah.
They will tell you when they think something sucks, or
What
whatever.
I appreciate them the most is they're the anti Bon Jovi. You know, Bon Jovi are still, and nothing against what they do, but they're still out there touring, but it's kind of like adult contemporary now. And all the
Yeah,
songs are rearranged to sound more adult contemporary. And Metallica, and generally these bands are at that point of their career legacy bands. They tore off the old music. If they have a new album, it's just to have a new album. No one knows anything on the album. But man, that
yeah,
Metallica last album, it's like they just came out again. And
yeah,
it's I've never seen anything like it. It's like they're a
yeah,
brand new band. Like I can
yeah,
see the Foo Fighters are in that category.
yeah,
Their new stuff is very well accepted and current, and they don't rely on just being a legacy band. But
yeah. I really like Death Magnetic.
yeah,
I like that album a lot. Uh,
the only difference is though, and I one of my best friends is a huge Metallica fan, and I'm going to tell you this funny story. That last album, he took his mom is English from England, and his dad's from Puerto Rico. Strong family ties to both countries, and he took his daughter at the time was like 13, no, well, maybe 10 or 11, and took her down to Puerto Rico to see Metallica on that tour in the big stadium, and he has the album like on LP, and till this day, and that album came out what 3-4 years ago.
the newest
Yeah,
one. Yeah, it's been about 3 years.
he hasn't
Yeah.
listened to the whole thing yet. He refuses to. And if I'm like, why do you keep doing that? And he's like, I just want to prolong this as long as I can. I want a new Metallica song like a year from now. And I'm like, how do you avoid that though? Like, how do you, because when we get in the car, I put it on just to see, like, try to trick him into listening to one, and he like freaks out. So he's like dedicated. But I tease him all the time. I said, they sound amazing. The only difference is that their shirts cost a lot more money now. Like they're into like
Yeah,
fashion stuff, but it still looks cool.
yeah,
You can
cool.
tell though that they're
And
putting thought into it.
and they care, man. Like they could they could easily just write a set list they could easily just write a set list and go out and play it every night,
Yeah.
and fans would be ecstatic, you know? But they really do care. Like, I'll give you a couple examples. One day I went to James's room, um, and his hotel room, and he had iTunes up, and he was buying. I can't remember the song. It was an early song, and he was buying the Metallica song on iTunes, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" You know? And he was like, "Well." He's like, in the meet and greet yesterday, this fan told me that I don't play the guitar solo the same on whatever this song was. So he's like, I thought I would buy the song and reteach myself the solo to see did I really like stray that far away. And he sat there and worked on the solo. Like he didn't have to do that.
Uh-uh.
Who who cares, right? I mean, like they're Metallica. Like whatever they play tonight, we're all gonna love and have a good experience. But he listened to that fan and took the time and actually even spent the money, to
That's the funny
figure out
part.
what did I change, And Lars, Lars gets a bad rap in rock, and I get it sometimes, but you know, this guy has every set list Metallica has ever played in their entire career. Okay? He has it cataloged. And every night there's a portion of their set list that has the songs it must include, right? And then there's usually like three or four, maybe five songs, but usually three or four that you can interchange. And the reason you can only interchange those songs is they don't have pyro cues and things like that. Because those type of things, they need to be the same because otherwise you'll end up having an accident.
Yeah.
When you're starting to change that kind of stuff, that's how people get burnt and things like that. So he goes through, so let's say we're in Frankfurt, Germany tonight, and he will go through and look at every set list they've played in Frankfurt, Germany, and might say that like you know, we've never played Trapped Under Ice in Frankfurt. So but we've played Creeping Death 3 times. So we're going to give them Trapped Under Ice tonight. And then he has to sit through. He's got this calculator that calculates time because their set is 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So when he puts these songs in, he's calculating how long the set will take and changing these songs. But he doesn't have to do that, right? I mean, whatever set list they could play the same set list every night and for the whole tour and no one, but he actually every night changes the set list according to, man, those people they've never gotten battery. So we're going to make sure they have battery tonight. And every night before they play their 2.5 hour set, whatever it is, they go in what they call like their tuning room. They warm up for 30 minutes, sometimes working on the songs that they add to the set list. So they're playing, between 2 and 3 hours a night, and think that like you can, I know there's drummers that are super critical of Lars, but the guy is definitely getting older. And in the encore, he's playing like Trapped Under Ice and stuff like that. And he played a half hour before the set even started.
It's crazy.
Who does that? And you have to think that when they wrote these songs, they did not think they were going to be playing them at almost 60 years old.
Yeah. So when you see that type of dedication, how does that affect you personally? Do you apply that to...
It's everything.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really what makes me proud of what I do. Like I'm not lying. There's some days, that it's 20, 21 hour work days. There was a stretch in South America with Metallica, which we called the Death March, where I was awake for almost 56 hours. and it's because we were doing the shows, and then we would have to load the gear on a cargo plane, and then the cargo plane would fly to the next thing. So you'd get on a plane, you'd unload the cargo, then put the cargo in the tractor trailers to the tractor trailers to go to the venue to unload the tractor trailers to set the show up. And when the lights go down and the fans are like screaming, even though I'm not on stage, I really feel like it was worth every second of no sleep because these people are going to have a
Yeah.
great time, you
So,
know?
what? Tell me the roles that you played on in Metallica for 4 years.
So the first tour I did, I was a set carpenter. We had three systems. We had a stadium system, we had a festival system. Oh, I'm sorry, we had two systems. We had black and blue. We had a stadium system and a festival system. So basically, what happens is like the stadium systems, they're so big you can't put them up same day. Like the steel, there's usually like multiple sets of steel that are leapfrogging,
Hmm.
and then when we come in, we now build the production on that steel. That takes a day in itself. Where an arena, you could go in, load in the morning, do the show, and load out at night. But these stadiums are different. So when we were building the stadium set, Metallica and say like their monitor guy, their sound guy, their pyro shooter, and all the key players like that, they may go to say like the Reed, Donington or Reed's Festival or whatever, and Metallica would play that festival while we're building the stadium.
Okay.
Then the next day they would fly back, and then they would join us. We would do the stadium, and then when we're tearing down the stadium that night, then they would fly and do another festival. And so then in 2008, 2009, 2010, I did the entire Death Magnetic tour. We did the world two times. And that role was I handled their dressing rooms and a lot of like their personal assisting at the venue. So I did not have to hardly ever travel with them outside, like on like a day off. They all have their own personal assistants for
Okay.
that. The only time I would ever have to fly with the band is if I was going to a day off with James to tattoo him.
Okay.
So I would handle their rooms, I would handle their personal belongings at the stage, I would handle preparing their cars for the planes, and always kind of like just the next step for them,
Would you do
you
the
know,
tune-up
like
rim?
I did not have to set the tuning room.
Okay.
They had a backline guy that set
Because I
that.
always wondered what's up
Um,
with the tapestry in backstage of these tune-up rooms. Like they have it's always every band has the same like cloths that make it feel like
so
a
the reason why is most of the time these are locker rooms.
yeah.
So they'll put up either some type of tapestry or pipe and drape so that it doesn't look like a locker room. And for example, like the tuning room, also the sound isn't hitting the metal
Okay.
lockers, and there's to tell you a cool thing about that tuning room is there's an engineer assigned to that room, and he's running at the time like Pro Tools and stuff directly to the stage. He records every show and is mixing the show while they're recording it. And later that night, after like midnight, or the next day, the fans can go and buy every live show,
Yes.
like the show that you were at. And that sound engineer in the tuning room is the guy that's designated to just handling
See,
that.
bands like that get it, and I know they're making money off of it, but like the fans don't care. It's just that access that they allow the fans to have to them is amazing.
Yeah, think of the first time you saw Van Halen. If you could have the show that you went to
Yeah.
live, you would buy that.
Yeah. I search it all the time on YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, Metallica, like they care. They
Yeah.
still they still work really hard to give the fans new stuff, not just show up and do a cash grab. That's not what they're about,
No, not at all.
you know.
All right.
Um,
So, what artists have you tattooed? You got NSYNC, Metallica, anybody in the Stones?
no one in the Stones. I've done a bunch on Hetfield. I did that
That's
skull on the
you.
side of his neck. Yeah. I've done. I did a dagger. I did a big eagle and a flag on the back of his arm. I did the musical notes of Cliff Burton's bass line in Orion here. Um, and I did some sparrows on his shoulders. But one of the ones I did that's got a funny story is right on like the top of his right wrist. There's two straight razors crisscrossed, and it says straight edge,
Yeah.
and it says STR, the number eight edge, and James, goes through periods of like trying to, to stay sober, and he was like, I really, you being you, I would really love for you to do my straight edge tattoo. And I mean, this is so funny. I was flattered, but the Metallica fan in me struggled. Like, I was like, I can't do a straight edge tattoo on Alcoholica. Like, that's my Metallica. You know what I mean? Like Alcoholica.
Yeah.
And so I did it, but and I'm super proud of it. I'm so glad that he thought I should be the guy because I'm a straight, I don't really market myself as straight edge, but
People
I'm a
figure
sober
out who
guy.
you're all about.
And but I was like, I don't know if I'm defacing metal right now,
Nah, you're good.
like, but
So that
but
brings up a good point. Have you ever been asked to do a tattoo and you thought maybe they would regret that choice, whether it's placement or especially placement? Like, did you ever kind of talk anyone out of a choice?
um, nothing that sticks out, but in the studio, that's a daily discussion, if you care.
Yeah.
There's some studios that they just want to make money, and then there's some studios that have like good morals and
What do you think of this new trend now of like the Post Malone look where you're getting all the stuff on your face and what do you think of that?
um I mean, I don't most of my tattoo friends that are my age, a lot of them like frown upon it. I I wouldn't promote that. I think you should get your face tattooed. Um, but I'm okay with it. I think it really helps all of us as far as that whole taboo of you got to be a bad person to have a
Yep.
tattoo, and you must have done time, and you must be in a gang, or you must have killed someone, or like, and
Because that's a real thing. Like that's how that still kind of
yeah.
exists.
So the fact that like um now your neurosurgeon may have a sleeve, or I think if someone like Post Malone can be doing Super Bowl commercials and people like it, I think that's great for the tattoo
Hmm.
industry. um would I want Six to get her face tattooed?
Does
No,
she
I
have
mean,
any tattoos?
she has a couple small
Did
ones.
you do them?
No. um I got a story on. I actually don't tattoo any longer, but with her, she loves the tattoos, but I don't see her as being heavily tattooed because since she's grown up in it, it's not as awesome as it is for
Yeah.
everybody else.
No, I get that.
Like the couple tattoos she has, it might be a thing where it's like, oh, my best friend in California, because she's my best friend in California, we kind of want to get something together
Right.
to symbolize our friendship. She also doesn't get heavily tattooed because it could play against her with auditioning and
Yeah.
stuff too.
Why did you make the decision to quit tattooing?
So here's a dark side of my career, but I think was the bright part for Six. So in 2000, well, right. at the beginning of 2010 when I knew that third year of the Metallica tour was gonna be the end. I was like, I really want to have something to show for my money. And two, I would like to be able to slow down a little bit because, I've already missed so much time with Six that her teenage years were coming up. And I really wanted to be around for it. So I was like, if I open a tattoo shop and get it established when Metallica finishes, I have this established business and I have another income. Well, 2010 ended up being such a terrible year. I got to open my shop. We finished a 3-year run with Metallica, which was awesome. But I ended up getting separated and eventually divorced from Six's mom, who I was married for 10 years. And well, if that wasn't enough, the summer of 2010, we finished touring in at Thanksgiving. The summer while I was home, I was gonna tattoo some of my friends. And I remember like my hand having like these little involuntary like kind of twitches and wasn't in any pain or anything. And I thought, well, maybe I like slept with it like under me or something like that. It eventually like kept happening and kept happening. So when I went back out to do some shows with Metallica, they have this guy, Dr. Don, that was on tour with them, and he would do like not only massaging, he would do acupuncture and little electrolysis things. And
Hmm.
he did some things where he tried to like clear out my nerves and all that stuff, and just nothing seemed to work. I just would get these little involuntary twitches, and as you can imagine, doing something with no eraser, that's that's a problem. So, um, so I went to a neurologist, had an MRI done of my head, and it turns out that I have a little tiny cyst on the pineal gland of my brain, like the size of a pencil tip. It's not um, dangerous to me. It's not. And the neurologist was like, honestly, if you didn't have your job, we wouldn't even be here talking about this because you wouldn't be analyzing it like that.
Yeah.
Um, and I was like, okay, so what's the solution? And he was like, well, clearly we're not doing brain surgery, and I was happy about that. He was like, there are some medications, but it's just like a band-aid. Eventually the medication, your body won't react to it the same. And he's like, I'm gonna tell you something. He's like, but I'm only gonna tell you because you're you and you're such a solid sober guy. He's like, but the pineal gland, when you drink and things like that, that's the part of your brain that you feel the buzz and you get drunk and things like that. And he was like, if you he's like, just to help you understand it, if you took a shot, it would level you out. Like you would tattoo like you've never tattooed before. But like the medicine, eventually one shot will be two shots, and
Hmm.
two shots will be three shots, and you're going to be a full blown alcoholic eventually to do your job. And I was like, well, that ain't going to happen. And he's like, that's the only reason I told you that. So I was like, well, I'm not going to take something that eventually is just going to fail. Like if we can't fix it, then we can't fix it. So I was bummed because you never think that you are not going to have control of your life, that you can just end something when you want to end it. Like, and so I just had to accept that the outlining was, it just was not working. And now that I know it, I'm like even obsessing over it. Like I some days, like when I fill out an envelope, I don't even know if it's going to make it where it's going to go. And then some days it's awesome. And it's not like I'm like I've got like tremors. Literally, like if you just squeeze the gas pump, just the tightness of your hand, sometimes my finger will just have like a little twitch, but with tattooing that's a problem. Well, so I just was like, well, I have the shop.
Hmm.
I can manage the shop. I can still design art. I have erasers there. So then after my divorce, uh Six got the option to go to California and pursue acting. And here's the bright side of the story is my career was booming. Now I wanted to open this tattoo shop. My tattoo shop's established. Now I have two careers that are doing great. Would I've considered uprooting my life and moving to LA? I, I probably wouldn't have, you know? And the fact that I wanted to come off the road somewhat to be with her and have my tattoo shop as an income allowed me to move to Cal. We just literally uprooted. Like we just were like, look, when you get out of school, we're gonna put everything we can in our pickup truck and our U-Haul, and we're gonna go there. And we'll sign a year's lease, and at about 9 months, you and I are going to have dinner together, and you can tell me if it's everything you thought it would be, and if it's not, at the 12-month mark, we'll put everything back in the truck and the U-Haul, and we'll drive back to Maryland.
Yeah.
Like, and I wouldn't have been able to do that, and I think so. I really feel like it probably happened for the
Well,
right reason.
absolutely. And it gave you that time with her, you know?
Yeah. So at the time, I thought the world was so unfair, but it actually it made I mean it really gave her the opportunity to be who she is today and excel in the things that she excels in and was worth the sacrifice. And I still have my tattoo shop 11 years later, you know.
And it's Orange Tattoo.
Orange
Where
Tattoo
is it?
Company in Annapolis,
Annapolis. Like,
right on West Street in
okay.
Annapolis. Yeah.
Um, and how much do you love just being a business owner? How involved are you? Are you there every day?
I'm not there every day, but most of the time I would say I'm there almost every day, but not all day.
Okay.
You know, I'm all the business side. So now when I travel with bands, I'm still doing the payroll. I'm still doing the supply ordering. I'm still handling all the business of the tattoo shop. I just hired, two desk guys that are the
Yeah.
mediators for the business and me, but I'm totally hands-on with all the business
So are you
and
still touring?
yeah, so I am now in the hip hop world, um, and I work for an artist named Future,
Yeah, yeah.
and uh, and I love it. And the reason I love it is because Future isn't a big fan of long tours. He is like the king of the one-offs, you know. So usually, like one weekend a month we'll fly out and we'll do shows. And but here's the funny part. It could be Texas or it could be Australia. Like we literally fly to Nigeria to do one show and then fly back home. Like I've backpacked to the Middle East
Wow.
before.
Now, in what capacity are you working with Future?
So Future I'm the tour coordinator.
Okay.
So I'm not working with him personally, hands on, his day to day stuff. And because, well, for one, he's never around. He's so awesome. He's the one artist that still keeps that mystery, where you don't see
Yeah.
them and you don't hear from them. So when they come, like Prince, you know what I mean? Like you don't know anything about Prince, right? Like that's Future. Like he shows up um like right before he used to go on stage. You literally give him his mic in his ears in his SUV. He'll come on, he'll crush it for 60 minutes, hand you his ears, his mic, he'll get back in the car and he'll go back to his jet and fly
That's
away.
crazy.
It's awesome. And that schedule is awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm the logistics guy on this. So I handle, you know, all the immigration, all the flights, all the hotels, the rider with the production, um, the dressing rooms, all the advancing, all just all the
And you're
logistics.
remarried now.
And I'm remarried.
So how
Yep,
does
I've
that
been
work? Does
married
she
for
go with
years.
you, or does she hang out back here in the
No.
States?
No, so she stays in Maryland. She has a daughter that is six's age, So they're both in their first year of college,
Are they
and
buddies?
it's really really funny. So um, years ago, like years and years ago, Six would always be like, Miss Denise is the female version of you, because she had been friends with her daughter forever.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, Six, I will never cross that line. That's not going to happen. I
Oh,
will
so do
never
you like know
date.
each other? Like, were you like
Yeah,
parents at
because I
school
would
and
bring
stuff?
Six to her
Oh,
house, or
okay.
she would bring her daughter to my house, and I'm like, I'm never crossing that line. It's not gonna happen. Like that's weird. Like, and I'm not gonna do that. And she just would always be like, I'm telling you, like Miss Denise is, she's for you, And not so nothing happened. We were in Maryland strictly, the friendship of their friendship and
Yeah.
us being parents. And Six and I moved to California, and Denise contacts me, is like, I want to bring Kaden out to come visit her, and yeah, sure, And ironically, on that trip when they visited us in LA, things just kind of developed. And it's like, well, for starters, I didn't that wasn't my intention. And two, now we live on opposite sides of the country, right? So she for a couple years, like, did 2 years in Maryland, 2 years in California, 2 years in Maryland, 2 years in California,
How long were you guys in
because Kate,
California?
four
Oh, I didn't
years.
realize that.
Yeah, six was there from 12 to 16, and then she had decided that she one day had this epiphany that, hey, I'm never gonna get to go to prom, and I'm never gonna, and I'm like, you're right. Like, you're gonna be able to work the rest of your life, but you will never get any of these things back.
Did
And she was like,
when she came back to school in Annapolis, I'm assuming, did
so
she,
yeah.
did she what was that like for her? Was she like the, oh, that's the California actress girl, or
So it was great because she went to South River High School, and it all the girls that were on her soccer team prior to us moving were the soccer team at South River. Even the varsity coach
yeah?
was her youth coach.
Okay.
So when she came back to South River and did 11th and 12th grade, um, everyone was used to her. Of course, there was some kids that knew about her, and the teachers, but all in all, like, if you didn't know, she never let it be known.
Okay.
She was like, I'm here because I want to be a I don't want to lose these years. I want to be a kid.
Yeah.
If I want to be in the limelight, I'll stay where I was. And so she played varsity soccer both years, and did the yearbook and
Mm-hmm.
all the stuff the other kids
That's
did.
great.
And
She's in college
and
now.
now she's at
Is she
NYU.
still focusing on soccer, or is that
So no soccer. She had decided that uh, she didn't want her college experience to be based around a sport.
mm-hmm.
And also, because there's opportunities that you're going to get, that maybe it might be an internship or something, that because you're committed to the team, you can't do it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, listen, I don't want to keep you too much longer. I could talk to you for another 2 hours. Um, but that's great stuff. Real quick, I want to throw down a couple names here. You said Rob Zombie you tattooed.
Hmm.
What was the Phil? You toured with Phil Collins.
I
What was
did.
that like?
I did the first final farewell tour. That's what it was called.
Oh my gosh.
And it was
Is he
awesome.
great?
Like, it
I
was
want to. I want to. I want to believe he's great.
he is the
Okay.
coolest. The coolest. Like, it was a night with Phil Collins, so there was no opening act. And just such an awesome guy. Like, I mean, he's just, that's, I don't even know how else to explain it.
Yeah.
His band was awesome. And he's got some heavy hitters in there, like Chester,
Yep.
and the bass player with the beard, what's his name? You know I'm
Yep.
talking about. He's
Yep. The
got the
big
big
beard.
gray beard and the
Was
glasses.
his son playing drums at the time?
No,
Okay.
just Chester,
Oh, that's right.
and
That's right.
then there was two sets on the stage. So Chester had his, Phil had his, and then there was this runway that went up the back of the stage that curved around the back, and in the center there was a drum set that came like through a lift just for him to sit on to do the do 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 do. And then after he did it, the drum set went back
That's
down.
crazy.
It didn't even have any cymbals on it.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So real quick before we get off, you had mentioned, the cyst issue that made you stop tattooing. Um, it would have been easy for, and maybe I'm wrong, but it would have been easy for you to really be crushed by that because tattooing. Did you find that that was your identity? Was that hard
Um,
to reconcile with? And did you like wonder, "All right, well, now who
it,
Frankie is now?"
it, yeah, yeah, for sure. That was my identity. Oddly enough, even all the stuff that I was doing in the music industry, when so many people have like similar first names, I would my friends on tour would be even introducing me to, oh, Frankie Tattoo,
Mm,
and then it's like, well, it's Frankie who used to tattoo,
yeah.
and the I mean it was definitely like a struggle. Like I said, like I've never experienced. You always hear people, especially on like social media, you always see all these crazy like memes and stuff of like, you know, make sure you appreciate today for today and that, and it's so easy to blow that off. And I'm so lucky to tell you that like I haven't experienced any like um too many like crazy like things in life that were all of a sudden,
Hmm.
you know what I'm saying? But that was one that was all of a sudden, um and to think that I was not going to be able to tattoo is until I wanted to stop, I would have never guessed that, in a million years.
Is it fair to say though that your relationship with Six and the move to Los Angeles kind of gave you back, it helped you through that, and then
For
gave
sure.
you your, like, it made your real identity become visible to you, like I'm a
For
dad
sure.
first kind of deal.
So I think that this kind of goes back to the parenting, and I think you could go either direction. In that time, I also experienced a
Hmm.
divorce. And, you know, I definitely got married to be married forever. You know what I mean? And when you when you have a kid, especially, I don't care what gets thrown at you. It was kind of what I was saying earlier when we were talking is like it doesn't matter what kind of a day you have when you come home, they're happy you're who you
Hmm.
are, and they're proud of you. And going through a divorce and then that happening and stuff like that, you can either go into what I like to call as like a survival mode, which puts your life into perspective. And at this point for me it was, you know what? I have this little girl that is relying on me right now. So that's the bigger picture. The bigger picture isn't you can't tattoo. You have other ways of providing. You still can do stuff in the music industry. You still do have a tattoo shop, you know, and I think as weird as it sounds, my divorce, I think, is what really created our what made our relationship so amazing is we really got into that mode of it doesn't really matter what's around us
Hmm.
as long as we have each other, you know we can make it work. And that's exactly what we did. Even when we went to California, being a single parent with like no child support, like things like that,
So mom
you
wasn't
move
involved
so
anymore.
no,
Okay.
no. And And when we went to California, it's really expensive. So we found a it's so the cliche LA story. We weren't sleeping in a car, but we did get a one bedroom apartment. I slept on the couch. Six had the bedroom. And this is funny. This is how I discovered Netflix. We bought a bunch of Tombstone pizzas and we opened a Netflix account and we watched tons of series until she would have an audition, and we would go do the audition and we would come home and continue on the series, because if we were at home eating tombstones we weren't spending money, and we would just go to auditions and auditions, and eventually we were able to move out and get a two-bedroom apartment. But that really was how we did it, and honestly I wouldn't change it.
Hmm.
It's really cool to think like that's what we did and we made it work, and she never once felt like she was being cheated, or or this isn't the way it's supposed to be, or she really has that great attitude of, we could live in a tent, we're fine,
You got each
you
other.
know yeah. And so for all those crappy things that were happening at the time, um, I really hold it responsible for my relationship with her being what it
Yeah.
is. So I wouldn't I'd have to tell you I wouldn't change it. Even though I would be sacrificing my marriage and one career. I'm okay with
All right,
that.
well, let me ask you this question then. As someone that has a going on 12-year-old daughter, I every day I think, all right, when's this shoe going to drop? Where like you're talking about the 14 to 16, or even just, it kills me to think. I sat at the dinner table 2 nights ago and I looked at everybody at the table. I'm like, listen, it might, and I started to choke up a bit. And I'm like, I just want you guys to know that how much this means to me, this moment that we have every day means to me, because this isn't going to be around forever. And you're not going to be at my dinner table every day. And just to have the four of us here every day, and even though we fight sometimes, but whatever, this means the world to me, like right now. And how has your relationship changed? Give me some hope that there's still a relationship with your kids when they go to college and get older.
So it's cool. You're absolutely right. Denise and I both have gone through the stages of 11th and 12th grade where they only come from their rooms when it's time to grab their food. They're in their own worlds between Netflix and FaceTiming with their friends and all of that stuff. Um, but now, when Six comes home from school, she wants to sit on the couch and watch whatever we're watching.
Yeah.
And she has flat out said, she's like, like, I remember so many times coming in the house and saying hi and walking past you, and how now it feels really good to sit there and have that time of just conversing over whatever we're watching, and hanging with the dog and things like that. And we have like these areas where we live, like Bay Ridge
Uh-huh.
and stuff, where it's like down on the water, and likes to take we have a Jeep to go and like ride along like Bay Ridge and just kind of like reminisce. And it's all because of her. Like, she's the one that
Yeah.
wants to do
Do you guys
it.
stay in touch while
So
she's in school? Like phone or
we
text or? Okay.
FaceTime still right now. We FaceTime honestly probably about 15 times a day.
All right. So you're making me feel better.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I will tell you that Denise doesn't have the same look.
It's that daughter
Um,
dad thing.
yeah, yeah, I really think it is, because Denise and her daughter have an awesome relationship, but um I I think Six and I, we've established such a friendship too, that when I FaceTime her, it'd be like me FaceTiming you.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like, oh, I'm I just went to grab lunch, blah 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 blah. Oh, cool. Like, it's like that. It's not like you calling and being like, So I wanted to tell you, bub, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it's
It's like
not the
your
so what did
friend.
you do today? It's you're not acquiring information. You're having a
Yeah,
relationship. Yeah.
yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah. So it was just those 2 years that were challenging, but it's just part of it. And I mean, and she realized it, like looking back on it,
Yeah.
But like I said, some of it they can't help.
What are the big differences between a Metallica tour versus an NSYNC tour? I'm talking like just what goes on back there.
Honestly, nothing. It's so quiet backstage that like Metallica, there's no there's no like wild parties, there's no girls, there's no, they're all married with families. I mean, if I was touring with Metallica in 86, maybe it would be totally different,
Yeah.
but it's pretty locked down, secure, and if only the people that belong there are there.
Yeah.
Um NSYNC was fairly the same, they were just so massive at the time that you really had to. It was so crazy. Like, listen to this, Tom. Like when the guys would throw away like their undergarments, like just like maybe you socks, a pair of underwear, t-shirts.
Yeah.
Like we would literally have to go and pour like old food or cut it up because the staff from the arenas were taking out the garbage and trying to sell it on eBay. Not even kidding.
Yikes.
Yeah. So, for me, I've never been on a tour where the backstage was insane.
Yeah.
Um, but the nightlife for sure. I mean, I've spent plenty of time in bars, brothels, uh, you name it, and obviously me not taking part in any of it, but I have to be there because I have to be there for their safety, have to be there for quality control. There's, you know,
So you had
a lot of things that people do that the world doesn't need to know about.
yeah.
One sec, let me grab my plug really quick
Okay.
for my computer. I'm going to tell you a really cool story about Justin. Justin, it was always like a big deal for him to, you need to know everybody's name.
Yeah.
It's very, very important. You should know people's names. It goes a long way. And, for exactly like we were saying, like, that fifth or sixth lighting guy. Um, and there was an artist that he was doing a tour with that he, on his solo career, he was co-headlining with. And I won't say her name, but they were talking in the hallway, and as different crew members are coming by, Justin would be like, "Hey, so and so, hey, so and so, hey, so and so," and she was just like, and they were co-headline, so they shared a lot of, at least the production people. And she said to him, she was like, "God, you know more of the people on my staff than I do," and he was like, "And what does that say?" Like, like, and it it really is true. Like, for him, he would be, whether he's walking by or like have like a little grill by his bus. If you came by, he would be like, "Hey Tom, what's up?" Like, he wouldn't just do it because it was the right thing to do. Like, he was waiting for you to reply,
Yeah.
like, and it really made a difference with the people that worked for him, that, like, he's acknowledged that I'm here. You can, money is great, and you can pay people and you can give them bonuses, but that acknowledgement makes you work long
Yeah.
hours. It makes you want to do the extra things and things like that. And that was something that I always instilled, in six. There's a lot of things that I've taken from the music side that I've told her, and I'm like, you listen, that guy holding that camera, it's heavy, you know, and he's not just some grunt, like you need to introduce yourself, you need to know him, you need to, find out maybe what he would like, what would make it easier for him. Be prepared so he doesn't have to hold that thing longer than necessary. And I was like, everyone you're working with, because at the end of the day, if you don't have them, you don't have a show. And it was awesome. I mean, like the kicks was like her first thing that she did, and before you know it, like she's holding boom mics and she's, holding the cameras, and she's now that she's acknowledged them, they've all invited her in on like, okay, this is why, we mic sometimes, we
Hmm.
don't mic sometimes, we do this angle, and it ended up being a learning experience of a lot of other jobs, but it really went a long way. Here she's the number one on the list for the show. And the fact that when she comes in, it's like, hey, Joe, hey, Sam, hey, like the set just comes to life because you're a team now.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to be there and everyone wants to get the best shot because you're showing them that you care.
There's not a lot of empathy in that industry, you know,
Yeah.
where people look
Yeah,
down at, or.
and being a kid, it's tricky, because I remember the first meeting with the showrunner, and keep in mind, she's 12 going on 13, and he said, um, I want you to know that the guy that's playing your dad, or the person that's playing your mom, or the camera guy, this is how they feed their families. This is their job. They do have sympathetic that you're a kid,
Yeah.
but they're at work. So you need to keep that in mind that it's not a normal situation to be a 13-year-old. You really have to kind of almost step it up to realizing that you guys are all at work
Yeah.
together. And it was a great thing for her to just know that even when she was at soccer practice, that the coach is giving his time right now, and don't waste his
Well,
time.
it strikes me that she's pretty grounded, you know?
Very,
And I think she got that
very.
from you. And I think both of you and I can agree to this, that, you know, when people hear that we're behind the scenes in either concerts or films and they think it's glamorous, and there's parts that are, but I always tell people I look at my job as a blue collar job,
Hmm.
because it is. Like, yeah,
Hmm.
yes, it's true that one day I could be behind, behind backstage meeting so and so, or doing this or doing that. But
Sure.
like the very next day, I'm, sitting down with my camera, grunting it up myself,
Yep.
and it's
Yep.
just, that's the dichotomy that I love, because it
Yep.
makes both of those things kind of precious, because
Yeah.
if it was
Yeah.
always
It's the
that
same.
way.
Like I love logistics, so I really love my job with Future. I'm so glad I don't have to fly with him. I'm so glad I don't have to stay at his hotel. I'm so glad I don't have to run on his schedule. Like I love my part in
Yeah.
it. Even though he's a really nice guy and all that, but like I don't want to go to the after parties. I don't want to go to any of the appearances. I really love, but if you want me to set up how it's all going to happen for him,
Yeah.
I I am so happy to do that.
Yeah. That's
I
awesome.
really love it.
We completely passed over this, and I need to talk to you about it. PRS guitars.
Oh
What
yeah.
would it, what, tell me more.
So real another I mean I feel so lucky because I really love how everything worked out for me, but so the old PRS factory, the original, was off of a road real close to my tattoo shop in Annapolis, off of a road called Chinkapin. It was on Virginia Avenue, and it was real small. It was a real small factory. I mean, our dust collection system, we just made wood boxes and put rubber screens over, and you jacked a dumpster up to a hood.
Wow.
It didn't really work at
Yeah.
all. I'm probably still full of like rosewood and mahogany, But back then, no CNC machines and things
Oh,
like that. So, you would be lucky, like our numbers for the day would be like 27,
so what
you
did you
know?
do there?
So I worked in the wood shop.
Okay.
I did every job in the wood shop. You usually start out sanding
Yeah.
bodies, but I started out there. I did the dupla carver, which is basically like a hand CNC machine. I did the shapers. I finished my years mainly on the neck team where I did everything from the blanks to the inlaying to the truss rod to cooking the rosewood in like an oven that you would have in your kitchen. Like that's how old this was. That's how you would get the moisture out of the rosewood. And back then, inlaying, you would have like a little metal jig and you would Dremel all those birds out
You would
because,
Dremel the birds.
Dremel each
Wow.
bird. Um, and then uh, when they finally moved over to the Eastern Shore, I worked there for the first year, and right after that is when my apprenticeship ended to where I could go take on like a full-time job. Paul to this day is still a very close friend of mine. Still communicate. He was truly one of the coolest. He if you everyone in there were musicians and stuff, so if you had a band, he would buy everybody's demo tape.
Wow.
Um, when you would have like the shop Christmas party, he would hold it at a venue and set up a back line, and everyone's shop band could go up there and play like two or three
Yeah.
songs. And he's just a great guy. I got to meet some cool people through him, like Ted McCarty, um, Ted Nugent, you name
Yeah.
it.
I've been trying to
And
get him on the podcast for a couple years. My story about him was we were in it was opening day at RFK for the Nationals, the first day they brought him back. So I don't know, early 2000s maybe. I can't remember. And two of my best friends, longest best friends, the three of us got season tickets. We only went to that one game. And I'm going down to get a beer and a hot dog, and he's standing there, and I'm like, "Are you?" And he kind of looked at me, and he goes, "Yeah." He goes, how'd you know?" He goes, "No one knows who I am." I'm like, "Dude, you're Paul Reed Smith." And we sat there for like 20 minutes waiting for our hot dogs and beer, but or whatever. I don't know what he got, but it just seemed
yeah,
like
yeah,
it was just such a humble like reaction to no one knows who I am. How do you know who I am? It was awesome.
yeah, he's a super down low guy. Um, when I worked there, we were even making basses for a short time. They dabbled in amps for a short time, and I actually made it through two layoff periods. I survived two layoff periods. It was a different time, and then man, now that factory that they have on the Eastern
Oh,
Shore, it's the real deal.
so
Like,
my buddy, the big Metallica fan, he and I went a couple years ago and took the tour. And I
hmm
mean, we still talk about it. I've never seen
hmm
anything like it. The attention to
hmm
detail and the whole misnomer with the custom shop guitars. I mean, they're great, but really, I think the only differentiator is just wooden stuff because everybody's still the same guy that does the custom, at least today, does the bottom of the barrel guitar. Not that there's a bottom of the barrel guitar, but like everything's treated the same exact way. And the
exactly.
custom guitar is quite honestly on the same level as every other guitar there. It's just
Yeah.
different quality of woods and stuff, but it was amazing. I mean, they look
There
amazing. Everything about them's great, and it's awesome that it's in
back
Maryland.
back when Eddie Van Halen switched to I don't remember the
Music
brand, but
Man.
with like the quilted maple and all that.
Um,
So,
this one.
yep. So Paul Reed Smith actually wanted to pick him up when he was
Yeah.
switching, and he complimented the guitar. I mean, he said it was really nice and amazing. I mean, Santana, all this, but he said it looked like a piece of furniture because it was so nice. And I really was boggled when that Music Man came out with all the quilted maple stained.
Yeah.
And I was thinking to myself, like, it's besides the shape, it's not any different. You know, you went with the same style guitar.
This reminds me very much of a Paul Reed Smith guitar. So this
Yeah.
is a 93. I think they went up to 94, 95. But it reminds me very much of it. The I did see somewhere online that and maybe you know about this, that they made him kind of a spec guitar to kind of get him over striped up. Did you see that or
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That was back in that time.
Yeah.
It was a, you know what else was happening back then that I thought was cool was Alex Lifeson wanted a he was playing PRS and he wanted a PRS and he wanted a specific color and they sent in one of Neil's drum shells because he was like I want it to match the drum shell and I
Yeah.
thought it was so amazing to see that
Oh, right
drum
in your
shell, you
hands.
know.
So when we went on tour, we were at the finishing area and there was a
Mhm.
Strat body kind of up, hanging up against the wall, and they were so cool there. And there was not a
Yeah.
lot of people, and they were probably telling us stuff they may not have should have told us. And I'm like, "Hey, what's with the Strat over there?" And it had like a number on it or something. And he was like, probably not supposed to tell you this, but that's a John Mayer prototype." And I'm like, "Really? You guys are making a Strat guitar?" And he's like, "Well, don't say anything." I'm like, "That's it." So we saw the one of the later prototypes of what we now know as that silver. I forget what they call it, but they've gotten so much crap for
Yeah.
that guitar, but I don't
Yeah.
understand why.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. That's so awesome. I wanted to talk to you about that.
Yeah. And Paul was awesome. Like he knew I was apprenticing to be a
Yeah,
tattooer and so he you know he knew that when I left there I was going to learn and so when it was after you know my apprenticeship which I've been at PRS at that point probably almost 5 years you know he was like you know good luck thank you you know like he and like I said I still have a friendship with
yeah,
him today
that's awesome.
it was a good experience and I still can't play guitar that's why I never left the wood
So
shop.
you have a couple of those guitars, though, right?
So I have a couple guitars. I actually have a PRS that Paul gave me when I opened my shop as like a you know kind of like a key
Yeah,
to
yeah,
the
yeah,
town kind of
yeah.
thing. And he painted an orange and a crown on it. And then I have well it's actually sixes. I have a Kirk Hammett the Caution Hot black guitar that he gave to six. I have a Kerry King like tribal kind of BC Rich looking model. I got like a handful of them, but I could never leave the finish hall or the wood shop because I was too rough to be in the finish hall,
Yeah.
and I couldn't be in final assembly because I didn't know how to play, so I couldn't. So I just lived in the wood shop, you
I
know.
have a guitar purchasing problem. So that's my addiction. Well, listen, man, I appreciate it. We need to get
Yeah,
together sometime. Next time I'm in
that's what I was
Annapolis,
gonna
I'll
say.
look you up
I
and we'll do dinner or something.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I have not done a show since 2 Decembers ago, you know,
Yeah.
and even though I have dates set for the summer, they're all Euro festivals. There's no way they're going to happen because I just saw like Paris was about to shut
Oh,
down for
really?
like a month,
Okay.
and so I mean, I'm literally just around, you
Well,
know.
just for the record, I got my vaccination. So yesterday marks my
I haven't got mine yet.
off. When we hit the button, I'm going to tell you where to get it.